And so I actually had the most interesting experience that I'd like to share with you. A few days ago, there was a presence in my house, and this presence was trying to reach out. I could feel that it was a spirit, a person that has passed on. And, it's quite rare to see them and experience their presence because these days there's not a lot of them around. And I'll explain that a little later why. But nonetheless, the spirit presence presented herself as a female, and she had dark hair, and she was dressed in white, in a white dress. Nothing more of extraordinary. And she basically was trying to reach out to try to talk to us. And so once when you try to reach out to talk to them, to the spirit, the presence, she eludes. She wants to reach out, but she steps away. But she wants to reach out, but she steps away. So that sort of thing. And I then eventually thought I should do a dream work where you drew a lucid dream and you actually track the spirit, and then you have a communication with them and you help them to move on. It is possible to do. I've done it many times. It's what I do. And this presence, she was not from this century. She was disincarnated since she passed on, which was around a few hundred years ago. And she and her family had come to South Africa back in the day when they escaped the wars that was taking place outside in the United Kingdom, everywhere else. So they basically fled to South Africa. I didn't pick up that she was related to anybody specific, but she then proceeded to explain to me her history, and she said to me basically they were good people. She kept emphasizing the whole thing about being a good person, and as she tried to show me her events, her experiences, her memories, which she actually proceeded to do, I saw that they were living in a house, and they had bought a place, and they had been living near farms around the Orobi Gorge, which is in South Africa area, the Orobi. And they had started to become known as the people that who had moved in, and basically kind of took over slowly but surely all kinds of little businesses and things out of the goodness of their heart, of course. So and eventually they bought a farm from a person who had the farm in his bloodline for centuries, for years and years, many years, and he couldn't afford the taxes that they were affording these people around them, because they wanted to create a community. That was what the intention was. And essentially, she, with her family, they basically thought that he was such a good person, that they thought they would just take the farm off his hands in lieu of the tax. And so then eventually proceeded to do so, leaving the farmer and his family destitute. But tax-free, of course. But that was a good thing, according to her. And so she then fixated on her good deeds. And she was professing to show her good deeds all the time, that she was trying to show me all of her good deeds. But the good deeds were basically focused on material wealth and accomplishment, and that it was basically seen as blessings. Needless to say that was part of taking over or doing a good deed for someone by taking off their hands the problem, and by way of using money as a leverage tool. Because the money came to them, of course, according to her, as a blessing. And it was God that gave them the money that made them rich. Aside from the actions that happen. And so she continued showing me all of these things, and she showed me that they were devout Christians, and they would go to church, and they even built a church on this farm, just in commemoration to the farmer and his family who couldn't afford the damn taxes. And this church was there, and the church was also then part of something that could dodge tax. So essentially rendered the entire community area as tax-free. Because, service to God is tax-free. And so they continued with all of that veneration. And basically how I saw would interpret it as them behaving like the elites that we have today, and perhaps many thousands of years before that even, where elites believe that, their riches, even if it was taken from people, was coming from God, for the grace of God. The money would come from the grace of God, and the money was by the grace of God. And taking the problem off your hands by taking your car from you if you can't afford it, is by the grace of God, of course. This is how they reason. And so very little focus or emphasis was placed really on the understanding of more things in terms of occult. For example, I was really actually I was exploring her soul, her energy, and they didn't do any much occult. They considered talking to people who would be spirit mediums or psychic people, as it was their duty. Those people, it was their duty to serve them. So as much as it was occult like, or it was seen as occult, that was the only time. They don't understand the meaning of the word occult. They saw spiritual people as servants of God who would serve them the riches, them the rich people, them the elites, them Hollywood, Disney, etc., etc., etc. And so it made me realize something very interesting, that a lot of alternative media groups online and big groups too, big channels, are basically doing the job, the service for them by presenting them information. And so almost 99% of all the elite people now, I'm speculating, are basically dumb shitheads. Rich, spoiled beyond. Of course, you know that. I don't need to tell you that it is so. But really messed up, seeing that any person that does anything on a spiritual level is a servant for them, and them taking, over your country with your minerals is really, based on God's, plan. And so you're dealing with a radicalized mindset with regards to how things are being presented. All these idiots, these cockroaches that are presenting this, the New World Order or the Pan-Africanism is just another inverted New World Order. And there's so many parasites that are attached to that specific belief as well. And I'm using Pan-Africanism because it's rife, like a parasitic disease, a mental disease where I live. I live in South Africa, and last time I checked, it was the Republic of South Africa. But Pan-Africanism removes your independence and the belief that you are in an independent country. I think it was Uganda that already signed up to be the bitches for the Pan-Africanism contract with everything else that's attached to it. And so, to what extent do you go? Do you find yourself, or can people, or do people find themselves keying into the system overlay and its presentations of do good deeds? No good deed goes unpunished. I don't know, have you heard of that one? And so basically, all of these things are still just more vendors for people to buy into, to key into. Their focus is on the alternative group, alternative people. And I'm not talking about the fake ones that have got like brilliant little check marks next to their titles and have hundreds of thousands of people following them who only like 1,000 people watch their stuff. But there's 100,000 people that are following them, but there's 1,000 people that respond and correspond on their channel at any given point in time, which is, quite remarkable. Who then also, of course, thieve and behave in exactly the same way as these rich people behave, where they do good deeds, for you. For example, I think another thing that was very interesting is, the health administration, and I'm not going to go into initials for which they all are, and I'm talking about internationally, wherever you are, your health administration had basically wanted to be so loyal to the belief, to the ideology of the system requirement that you would need to basically die so that they could feel that they've done what they had to do. So you're forced to administer that thing in your arm, that poison, that thing that's now come out in the system, and it's like rummaging around like dirty laundry. It's just going all over the place. It's just more distractions, along with all the other little minion things that are related to the system overlay. The more you focus on the system overlay in terms of where we are now, and I'm looking at it in time-wise, timeline related, the more you may see and may need to explore and question and discern those who profess to do good for the benefit of themselves and others, and seeing it in a very inverted manner, that it was a blessing, like winning a war, praying to a certain God, or praying to God and saying, it was God's will that we had to win the war. It was God's will, so we had to kill those people. They were, the enemy. They needed to die, type of thing. And so what I want to bring to your mind is that the Ministry of Magic is a small group of entities, of believers, of people that are actually practicing actual hardcore magical works. I've always known it. You can feel it sometimes. And then you get the other types that are operating and using things such as the pagan material, pagan works, pagan magic. And I'm talking about like stuff like, for example, black magic, or in the tribal sense, or voodoo, for example, however you look at it, or stuff that's going on here, Dagati, which is the black magic in South Africa, which has a very firm believer base as well. And you don't have to be black to feel the impact of it as well. I just need to add that in, because I know of people and friends who have gone through that trauma of needing to actually disconnect themselves from that shit. It is a messy thing. But I do want to share this with you, this little nugget for you to take with you, so that you understand that, granted, I would assume that you would question your own moral position and where you see yourself, because that does require you to go deeper and question where you are in terms of what you do and your actions and your heart. And the interesting thing was, as much as this woman was trying to present to me her things, her deeds, her actions, her beliefs, her ideologies, her riches, her material wealth was seen as the key to take her into the next life. They all know that they're going to die. Obviously, they're scared shitless of dying, but they are worried that where they are when they die is that they may end up in a place that could be hellish. However, I'll explain to you what the hell looks like so that you get this in your mind. What I would interpret as hell, it could be hell for them, but they are unaware of it. So there's no frying, no braaiing or roasting anyone or freezing any person out at all. No ice age in the hellish conditions or darkness, none of that. However, it is a strange sort of reality. That level, that place, that physical location that she found herself in, she saw nothing wrong with. It was a place that I saw as dark in terms of light, very little light there physically. There was no emanation or illumination in the energy there. It reminded me very strongly of the upside down world, where in Stranger Things, it is a good representation, though it's not exactly like that. There are no things running around like that, or monsters that are gonna eat you or do any of those things. But the coloration of it is what I would say looks like that. It's like the basin. You know, when you run your dishes clean and you rinse it off, and there's a last bits of food bits that sits in the basin. That's what I would see as where they are. The Spectreville. I think I'll call it the Spectreville, because that's where they basically go when they die. Constantly around their material goods, so they don't let go of it. The lower base level of when you astral travel, the place that traps you there. And so you are probably going to be a little bit more aware in terms of what you consider as achievements and things, as for who was it, how and in what way was the achievement done. How to disconnect the service for others' belief system, or the service that is a projection coming from the top down, using the fat middle fish or the fat alt channels to basically force them, to pressure them to draw more energy from us as the ones on the smaller platforms or smaller channels. You're looking at a chain of service. And so essentially what I want to suggest is to disconnect from the expectation that you're going to be communicating with people that are interested in your work. Disconnect from that expectation and connect with the understanding and awareness that you are speaking to people you are speaking to some people that are interested in wanting to explore and become stronger, who want to grow. And that is the only way you'll be able to cut off the proverbial head of the snake that keeps on, or the worm. Let me put it this way. Let me not insult a snake, but let me cut off the head of the parasite that is using the chain of service, command over you. And this means that, yes, you will see your work being skimmed, and you will recognize your energy signature in your works from coming out of other people's mouths. The fat ones, the fat, greedy alt channels who are actually indirectly serving the upper echelon, or the cream, or the rotten cream of the elites. And so essentially, these alt channels are then perpetuating the Ministry of Magic in its existence. And so actually, I want to tell you, be mindful that your work does not serve those fat fish, but that your work stays organic and warm and kind and through your heart, and that your direction in which you present your information is for certain people, literally. I would rather have 10 very amazing, warm, kind human beings and beings of spirited existence than have 100,000 fake Pinocchios. That is literally how I feel. Because essentially, these fat alt channels and these occult groups that are only of service to the Ministry of Magic, which is a very convoluted, weak program, which is busy dismantling itself as we speak, because the more we speak on this channel about these things, the more it becomes something that we are aware of, and the more we are aware, the more the information dismantles itself. So literally, there is power in the way we speak and present ourselves. And so I'm leaving that with you to think on.